Hey everybody, welcome to This Pink Cloud. I am DJ Kelly Reverb. This is a show about multiple pathways to recovery, mental health, all that good stuff. Super excited to have one of my illegitimate children on the show to talk about mental health. Everybody's favorite disco stew slash can't miss him dancing guy, Jordyn Dent, everybody, a.k.a. Yndent, and that is spelled Y-N-D-E-N-T. So give it up for Jordyn Dent, everybody. How are you, bud?
I'm so good. I'm happy to be here, Kelly. He's not kidding. He's basically my father. They're the exact same age, like 2 months apart.
Right. We talk about that often, and then when we take family photos, when we're out together, it's funny. So yeah, I see you're in the studio, and I see
actually.
Is that the house?
Yeah, it's just the house.
Oh, okay.
My studio doesn't have great Wi-Fi, unfortunately.
I gotcha. I have been there before, so I understand. And it's probably hot as hell in there right now, right?
You're telling me.
Yeah.
I don't have an AC unit in there, so yeah.
Right. Well, anyway, dude, so I'm excited to have you on. We often talk of mental health. And, obviously everybody's got their own burdens to carry or, deal with because, it's reality. And, we have challenges and life has challenges. But, and I want to get into that a little bit more with you. And then obviously we've got big news, which we will unveil later in the show. And then, but why don't you tell the people your backstory a little bit, just as far as the history goes.
The history of me?
Yeah. No, the history of your father.
Well, in 1970, no.
Right. Yeah, well, hey, I know that year well.
Actually, 9 months before that. 1969, no. So my name is Jordyn Dent, otherwise known as Yndent, as an artist or DJ. I grew up in Fort Worth, Texas, and I live in Dallas with Kelly. Not together, but I live in Dallas.
We're actually in the same house, but
yeah.
We're just filming in different rooms.
I've lived in Dallas for about 3 years now.
Okay.
I graduated college in 2020. I went to TCU, also in Fort Worth.
Okay.
So that was that was the first pandemic summer. So
right.
I lived with my dad for about a year and a half, almost 2 years, and then I moved out and got an apartment in Uptown Dallas, and I've been here ever since.
Nice. And you were in the band at TCU as well, right?
Yeah. I was in band since 6th grade.
Okay.
In band, I was a trumpet player, but at home,
likewise,
I was also a drummer.
Oh, you were? I didn't know that.
Yeah. I always liked playing the drums more. But yeah. Texas, I was in the top band in high school and everything. So, in Texas, marching band and band in general was just very competitive. So, my directors didn't want me switching to drum.
Well, and the thing is I was talking to Gil last week, Guilty Pleasure, last week, and he was telling me about his playing of heavy instruments. So like when you're doing percussion or drums or whatever, you're carrying around a bell kit at least. If not like some big bass drum. And then he also did that, and he did the tuba. So can you imagine? Like I was like, but I told him, this warmed you up for carrying heavy gear later on in your DJ career. So now it's like nothing,
Yeah, I couldn't do that back then. My freshman year of high school was 5'2".
Oh, really?
Sophomore year was like 5'4". I didn't grow till junior year, and I think I was like 6 feet tall, like by the time I graduated, and then I grew like 4 more inches in college. So
Okay,
I was
so how tall
real
are you?
small in
By
high
the way,
school.
how tall? Give the people, because I'm 5'10", average dad height.
Yeah.
But how tall are you?
Like 6'3", 6'4",
Six,
somewhere in there.
6'3", and then
My
like
hair makes me people think I'm
right,
like 6'6", 6'7".
6'7",
I'm like, I
dude. Yeah.
wish.
Have you ever seen Fletch? The movie Fletch with
No,
Chevy
I
Chase.
haven't.
It's funny because they say he's 6'3", 6'7" with the afro, and it's like Marv Albert doing the whole
Wait,
commentary.
I've
That
never heard
reminded me of
that.
that. It's a good
That's
movie.
funny.
But yeah, okay. So then, did you graduate college?
Yes,
Oh,
yeah.
okay,
I
cool.
I was a computer science major.
Uh huh.
So I was in school for 5 years. I graduated high school in 2015.
Okay.
But I was a computer science grad. I um, got a job right out of school. I interned at Fidelity Investments my last 2 years
Hmm.
of college, and then I accepted a full-time position there after graduation. And then I was at Fidelity for about a year and a half, and I went to another firm, a consulting firm, and I was a software
Gotcha.
engineer there.
So, and then you pretty much went right into the workforce, huh?
Yeah, quite literally.
Yeah.
Graduate. I mean, I lived on campus because I was an RA, but the pandemic kind of killed the year, but the rest of the year was online. And so, but, I was home in May, and I started work June 22nd or something like that of that year,
Hmm.
a week after I got my dog, Blue.
Oh,
Uh,
nice. Shout out
so,
Blue. We love Blue.
yes,
And you
he's
have a new
out
cat
there.
too.
I do.
Yeah.
She's sleeping
She's
behind me,
around.
but if she gets antsy, she might pop up.
She might come up and say hi. Nice. Canty, right? Or
Yes,
yeah,
yeah.
nice. I love it. But okay, so yeah, I mean, so that kind of gives us a background. But where were you, like, as far as, like, I know you said band, and musically, but where were you with your, like, as far as your DJ stuff, and how did that enter the picture?
Yeah, so it's funny because DJing for me kind of came out of nowhere.
Hmm.
So I was, obviously I was in band in college. I wasn't a music major or anything, so I didn't really anticipate a future with music, like performing or teaching or anything like that.
Hmm.
Obviously, I love music. My Spotify Wrapped every year always has insane amounts of listening
Right.
minutes.
You listen
Um,
too much.
but and I grew up on rock
Hmm.
and just all kinds of stuff. But after I moved to Dallas, I it was like a year later or sometime in that first year or something. Um, I started shuffling.
Okay.
Actually, I think it was like a few months after I moved. So,
Hmm.
um, anyways, I had some friends. We went to a festival together. They were shufflers, and so we started shuffling. Or
And for
they were
those that
shuffling,
don't
and
know what shuffling is,
yes, dancing,
please explain dancing. Okay,
a
it's a
form
type
of
of dancing, and it's almost kind of like where you almost look like you're dancing. It's almost like a moonwalk kind of type thing
yeah.
where you're in place.
It's like a footwork based
But you're
dance.
but you're moving.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Most people have probably heard of or seen something called the Running Man.
There you go.
And that's what, when I saw my friends dancing, I was like, hey, like, I know how to do that. I learned that in eighth grade.
Right.
Anyways, long story short, I, ended up, dancing with them the second day. And then that started my shuffle journey. And that kind of
Hmm.
took over my life. Then fast forward to like, you know, months. So like
Hmm.
towards the end of that year, I believe it was the same year, I
Hmm.
noticed there was like over a period of time, there were a bunch of people that would ask me if I was a DJ.
Hmm.
Sometimes people would get me mixed up with other DJs in the scene, but it wasn't really that. It was them just kind of assuming I was one
Okay.
based on just how I feel and express myself with music.
Okay.
Um, or some people would just tell me they would just look at me and they just felt like that was my vibe. But I remember there was one week in particular that I got asked like 3 or 5 times if
Right.
I was a DJ or somebody assumed I was or something. And I remember that was around, I was like getting interested in that kind of music performance because I remember like Fred Again was popping off for some reason around that time.
Sure.
And I was talking to my roommate and I was like, dude, I was like, all these people keep asking me if I'm a DJ. Maybe maybe this is a sign. Maybe I need to go buy
Right.
some decks and learn.
Right. Right.
Um, and so that was like November, December
Mm-hmm.
of 2022, I
Right.
believe. And the rest is history. I started learning I didn't tell anybody for a year. It was one of
Mm-hmm.
those things that like I couldn't hide it if you came to my apartment,
Right.
but I wasn't putting it out there. I wasn't posting about it.
You
I
weren't
wasn't
public
asking for
with it. Yeah, I
gigs.
gotcha.
Not at all.
Right.
And so wasn't until about a year later, I was playing at a party with some friends. Like we have like a friendsmas that one of my
Mm-hmm.
friend groups has every year, and a bunch of them are DJs. And so I very anxiously asked them if I could get in the rotation, and they were just kind of like, "Come on now."
Yeah.
And so I played, and then two of us, me and Lima, my dog, ended up playing for 4 or 5 hours straight.
Right.
And basically the next morning, one of them, his name's Felix Pandolce,
Oh,
incredible
yeah.
dude. He
Nice.
runs
Shout out.
PBH
Yeah.
out here in Dallas,
Shout
Pinnacle
out
Beach House
Felix.
Productions.
Yeah.
And he texted me, and he wanted to give me my first shot because PBH they had a big New Year's party that year at the Campus Hotel.
Right.
So it was a big New Year's show, and he wanted to give me that 11 to 12 prime ring in the New Year
Oh,
slot
nice, dude.
for my first gig, and I was
Wow.
like, "What?" This is just after I was. None of these people even knew I DJ'd, and I
Right.
went from playing at the party with these homies to
Right.
like getting my first gig, and then the rest is history from
There we
there.
go. Well, and for those that don't know, that haven't seen you live in person, Jordyn is obviously, we've talked about his extreme height, but then you have that look, you have the disco vibe about you. And then also you've got the moves, dude. And I'm gonna say shout out your mom, who was a former Dallas Cowboy cheerleader,
Yeah.
for the moves. Because yeah, no, I mean, I think I don't really blow smoke up this many people's whatevers, but it's like I think you've got something very marketable. I think you're instantly recognizable, and b, you look like you're having fun, so it's contagious. And then, like, you actually love the music, and then you're good at producing the music. So, I think, there's going to be a lot more we're going to see of you in the future.
Well, that means a lot.
Well, I am your dad, so
True.
so I have to say shit like that, right? Hey, but so yeah, let's get a little serious here, because I know we often talk about the ADHD and all that kind of stuff, but I know you do have a clinical diagnosis for this. And then let's talk about how it affects your life, and then how you deal with it, and you use it, not necessarily to your advantage, but actually just encompass and move forward.
Yeah. It's fun.
Yeah.
It's fun. It's tough. Um, I was diagnosed as an adult actually. So at 24 years old, I think it was like the same month that I moved to Dallas. Um, but it was one of those things that what inspired me to finally go seek out a diagnosis was uh, a lot of research, like coming across um, articles and just reading a lot and relating to way too many things, and then really reflecting on my life and my experience in school. Like I was
Mm-hmm.
never a good student. I've always been a night owl. There's all sorts of signs basically.
Right.
And so I found out there was a psychiatrist in my area who specializes in ADHD. And so I was able to schedule an appointment with her and get
Mm-hmm.
diagnosed. And then once that happened and I started taking medication, I always say it's no kidding. Like it's no coincidence that the best years of my life have been those years, like since then.
Mm-hmm.
The best, most productive years of my life.
Right.
And I like in school, I was involved, I was active. I was in marching band. I had a job on campus. I was an RA.
Yeah.
I was a very social guy. I love playing sports and
Mm-hmm.
everything. But I didn't really manage all that well. And in a way, like if the way I did kind of manage it is just because in school you kind of have to. If you don't, then
Yeah,
you
then you get
fail.
your parents get a letter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so lots of all-nighters were pulled. Not much
Hmm.
sleep was had in college.
Hmm.
And problems like I'm always late to everything. I was always late to my classes,
Right. Has that
and
changed?
I wish it had changed.
Okay.
um,
Just wondering.
but uh, but anyways, and so over time, ever since I got diagnosed, I've
Hmm.
honestly I took a kind of like special interest in ADHD and really trying to learn about it and understand it to understand and make sense of how my brain works.
Hmm.
And ever since I started uh, DJing, one of the
Hmm.
nice things about ADHD is people talk about, oh, it's a superpower because you have the ability to hyper focus and stuff.
Hmm.
Um, which is true. I can get in a flow state and then it's like time does not exist anymore.
Right.
And like I'm very time blind. And that can be a good thing, especially when it comes to things you're passionate about. That's often what can trigger it. I like learning new things. And especially at that time, that was a very, that was a creative, fun skill that I was building.
Hmm.
And so that
You're the
was,
type of personality that I would say that likes to know how the watch works.
yeah,
Not just what time it is. You want to know what each gear does
that's a good
and
point.
everything. Yeah.
I like that. Um, and so, yeah, it was able to keep me engaged and focused and everything.
Hmm.
Well, we could talk about all the other ways that it affects me in my adult life, but
Well, sure.
relating to music and production,
Hmm.
when I started producing, I had the same thing happen. Of course, I started producing, and that was all I really thought about.
Hmm.
That's all I would do, and if anything, that hyper focus really helped me, make a ton of progress really fast.
Sure.
But the problem with that is it's not sustainable, and that's where like the reality of having ADHD kicks in.
Hmm.
The lack of motivation, the constantly ruminating over just different thoughts or different options, different ideas, different things.
Hmm.
The concept that basically every single thing that I have to do
Uh-huh.
is always on my mind like all at once.
All
I'm
right.
like, oh, I need to do this, but I also need to do this. I also need to do this. I also need to do this. I
Uh,
also need this. Oh, when I do this, I have to do this afterwards. It's pretty much, it's not like it's always just like yelling at
well,
me
you
in
know
my
what?
head,
I mean,
but
to be
it's
honest,
always there.
I can relate with that because sometimes that's how easily you can get overwhelmed. And it can be that way because if you start dissecting things you got to do, like
Yeah.
if I start thinking about a track that I'm working on, and I'm like, okay, well, I have to do this. Okay, so I have to run the vocal back through AI and try to smooth it out a little bit, pitch shift this, and then I've got to carve out room for this. And then you start thinking of the list, and you're like, man, that's work, dude.
Well,
It's like,
so that's good because you're
right.
identifying a process and then
Yeah.
you can follow that
Hmm.
process.
Right.
Um, ADHD brains aren't really really habit routine process oriented always
Hmm.
like that. um that's why like for example, one of the best ways to kind of cope with that
Hmm.
is to build routine into your life, but the problem is an ADHD brain cannot hold routine very
Right.
successfully. Like I might be able to do something for a week or a couple weeks maybe. And then all of a sudden one day I miss it and I would never do it again. That's why I've always said it's like, before I started DJing, part of the reason I didn't want to put it out there is because I would learn new things. I would pick up hobbies all the
Yeah,
time and
you
I
didn't
didn't
want it
want
to
to
be another passing fancy.
yeah, I didn't
Gotcha.
want to just look like one of those people online that was
Well,
maybe
but I
like doing
mean,
it
you've done
trendy or
you've done, photography, and I
yeah.
got to say, you've done it quite well. I mean, you took some photos of me, so it's like I mean, just because you don't choose that as your vocation, doesn't mean anything. At least, that's a skill you have, and they can never be taken away from you.
Speaking of
Amen.
those photos, I
Yeah.
still have to edit them because I love the concept of out of sight, out of mind.
Right?
Oh my God.
That's funny. Yeah, this has all just been a ruse to get you to finish the photos that you took of me. That's all it is.
At least
But
you've been able to use some of them.
yeah,
So.
well, yeah, of course. All right. So as far as like music and stuff like that, um, do you find it like difficult to, when you're working on music, to does the ADHD get in the way, or do you see it more beneficial or detrimental or both?
Ooh.
I just made
Uh,
that up. That was pretty good.
I mean, like anything, it's definitely a little bit of both.
Hmm.
Um, there are times where my my natural creativity and attention to detail and interest in things, particularly like intricate, aspects of things,
Hmm.
uh, can really help.
Hmm.
Um, and but at the same time, it all comes with a cost of time. And
Hmm.
that's where I feel like it often hurts me the most because I have friends, for example, I have friends who will talk about like, or I'll see videos where people talk about, like if you have 15 minutes, just, open up the DAW and do something
Hmm.
and then like, go about your day. That content, that uh, concept
Hmm.
of like task switching is what we called it in the workplace.
Okay.
Context switching, sorry, more accurate, was something that I've always struggled with actually because of how my brain works.
Mm.
And
Yeah,
so
once you get
I
cooking
can't.
on something, it's tough to go.
Yeah, it's almost like all or nothing
Right.
all the time,
Hmm.
and that's really hard to keep up with.
Sure.
Especially it's like if I'm a night owl, so that means if I'm starting a studio session at 10 p.m., I'm probably not going to bed till 4, 5
Hmm.
in the morning.
Oh, at least. Yeah.
Um, and even if I'm doing something during the day, it's I mean, I have other things that I need to do in my life, and I almost often will work on producing
Hmm.
uh, as a way to not like procrastinate the doing those other things because I'm not intentionally doing it. It's just like that's what my mind is fixated on,
Hmm.
and pulling away from that to, you know, um, put focus on other things can be difficult
Right.
unless I hit like maybe I hit a stopping point. Maybe I like
Hmm.
just like exported this version of the track.
Hmm.
Um, but oftentimes I'll get sucked right back in because I'll start listening to it and I'll hear something and I'm like, oh, I want to change that or I want to change that,
Right.
and then I'm
Yeah.
right back at it, and then 3 more hours have passed,
Right. And
and
five versions
yeah,
later.
and these are all the types of things that every producer is going to say they experience. And that's the thing with
Right.
ADHD is the average person will hear ADHD experiences and relate to them at a certain level because
Hmm.
I mean you have a brain just like me.
Hmm.
You're gonna get overwhelmed, you're gonna get anxious, you're gonna have racing thoughts, you're gonna not be able to focus on something sometimes. You're gonna be endlessly fatigued, you're gonna be all sorts of things. The problem is how you get diagnosed with ADHD, how you determine if somebody has ADHD is
Hmm.
just the level at which it affects your day-to-day life. There's literally like a diagnostic questionnaire
Right.
criteria
I
thing,
need to look that up.
and it's one of those things that it's so simple that what I did, it was like so simple. And when I talked to a psychiatrist and she ended up diagnosing me, I got overloaded with imposter syndrome. I was like,
Hmm.
there's no way. But at the same time, I understand now that it's very real. Like
Hmm.
there are ways that living with ADHD affects my life
Right.
to a degree that most people do not experience.
Right.
And even if I'm able to, I'm slowly finding ways to overcome these things.
Right.
Um, but if I never got diagnosed 4 years ago and I never got medicated, then I mean, I wouldn't be sitting in this spot having this conversation because I don't even know what I'd be doing with my life. Like, it's
Yeah.
not like my life wouldn't be anything. Like,
Right.
I had friends. I was,
Yeah.
still doing well for myself, but I didn't really have the drive to like pick up things and really like put in the work to change my life like I have
Hmm.
now. And the
Right.
medication really is a tool that helps me with
Okay.
that like help my
Yeah.
brain with that a lot.
What and
So
do you what? So what are you prescribed, or what did they? I mean, what do they normally prescribe for ADHD or whatever?
there's a multitude of different stimulant medications.
Okay.
They also have non-stimulant options
Mm-hmm.
these days. Um, for anybody who has like heart issues would want to take a non-stimulant option,
Mm-hmm. Right.
or like blood pressure issues and stuff like
Sure.
that. But so like you've obviously heard of Adderall.
Mm-hmm.
There's like Concerta. There's like a few different ones. What I take is called Vyvanse.
Mm-hmm.
So it's similar to extended release Adderall with that you take it once a day and it lasts the whole day.
Okay.
Now in practice, does it actually last the whole day? No.
No.
um,
Right.
but
You can feel the peak.
it's not like a multiple dose kind of thing. It's like the formula is different than how extended release Adderall works. That's
Uh-huh.
why it's a completely different brand. It's a completely different medication. It metabolizes differently and on a different timeline and all that stuff.
Gotcha.
But that's what I take. And so there's various dosage levels.
Mm-hmm.
There might be, and your dosage level also has really like no correlation with like I guess your how do I phrase this?
Diagnosis or
Yeah, kind of, because just like everybody's body is different.
right. Yeah.
So like there are some people that
Your
would
chemistry.
that need a 5 milligram Adderall dose, and that's what they need, or
Mm-hmm.
half of that. And there's some people who need a whatever the highest one
Right.
is.
And then there's some
And
people that need to put the Adderall down and walk away.
that
I'm
is
like,
true.
it's the middle of winter and you're sweating, dude.
Oh God. Yeah, that's yeah. If you're supposed to take a stimulant medication, it normalizes you. There's
Right.
no
Yeah,
that's like a
there's
common
no tweak to it.
misunderstanding.
Yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah.
there's it's kind of I'm forgetting the word not like people
Well,
don't like demonize.
it's
There's
like
stigma against it.
when there's like hyperactive children, that's what they also give them a stimulant, I think, and that counteracts it, you know.
Sometimes, yeah,
It's like two positives make a negative or whatever.
mhm.
Or,
It shows
you know.
itself differently in
Yeah.
kids and
Hmm.
in women and in adults.
Right.
But yeah, the reason why it does that essentially is because the reason why it's not that you like can't focus or you're hyperactive and
Yeah, I was
stuff.
gonna say, is it like squirrel brain? Not. Yeah.
If you really wanted to minimize, and again, I'm not a medical expert, so
Right.
anybody
Yeah.
who's listening to this, do not sue me.
Right.
But and, I don't want to ever spread any misinformation either. But
Sure.
um,
To the best of
basically,
your
the
understanding.
reason why a stimulant med, which is supposed to stimulate you, has a counteractive effect on somebody who has ADHD, is because your ADHD causes your brain to constantly look for stimulation, basically.
Hmm.
So like the kid who's fidgeting or like won't sit still or something, that's your brain essentially stimming to try and stimulate itself. So like I'm always drumming on things. I'm
Yeah.
always like twirling my hair, pulling my
Hmm.
hair and stuff. There's a lot of
Right.
bad habits that come from that actually,
Hmm.
because my brain is constantly trying to look for stimulation. So what happens whenever you give it the stimulation it needs? It
Hmm.
mellows out. It's normal. You could go to sleep,
Right.
literally.
Yeah, I was
It's
going to
like I
ask
don't
you. So,
get
do you have
wired or
problems? I mean, obviously, this lifestyle lends itself to odd hours.
Mhm.
Atypical hours, or like non non circadian rhythm friendly hours. Let's
Yeah.
put it that way. Um, but so, do you have trouble sleeping? And is it did you always, or is it? Do you ever have any side effects from the medication, or?
Actually, never.
Okay.
I've never had trouble sleeping, not even in the slightest.
Right.
Um, and not everybody can say that. Like I know people who would, like their dosage was, they took just like traditional Adderall, which
Hmm.
is a like immediate release. You take it 2 times a day. And if they took their second one too late in the day, they won't be able to go to sleep that night.
Right.
Now, what's funny is like I could take my Vyvanse at 3 p.m. and still go to sleep just fine at a very normal hour. But
Hmm.
again, everybody is different. But yeah, I've never ever had trouble sleeping, getting a full night of sleep.
Right.
I've always been able to operate on very little sleep anyways, just because of, my night owl tendencies
Right.
for my whole life.
And the fact that
Um,
you're a kid.
yeah.
Right. You don't need the old man nap in the afternoon.
I don't know. Sometimes I really do. Yesterday was a good
Right.
example of
That
that.
was one of the days. That's fun. Okay, well, let's throw to commercial and we'll be right back. Hey guys, Kelly Reverb here. Yep, you guessed it. We have no sponsor. Hey, so if you want to be a sponsor of the show, be sure and hit me up on thispinkcloud@gmail.com. Also, hit the link tree, please. We can always use your support. There is a one-time donation. There is a monthly support button, all that stuff. Also, we're doing shout outs. So if you want to shout out, we can work that out. And if you want to be a guest, hit me up. All this good stuff can happen via email at thispinkcloud@gmail.com. All right, well, we appreciate your continued support. We always love you guys. All right, and we are back, and we also have some new music out, and here it is. All right, and that is the new stuff. And guess what, man? That's this guy's remix, and then of course the original by me and or Chad and I. But I'm excited for that to come out, dude. It's really good, and I'm like a proud papa. It's like because I think I know that you have a lot of talent as far as production, but it's the first thing that you have taken to the finish line and is now publicly coming out for consumption.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's pretty exciting, man, and I'm excited for you. And I'm
Thank you.
happy you could be a part of it.
I'm honored to be a part of it. It's,
Wow.
it's a blessing. I'm thankful for everything. And yeah, it's crazy that after a year of or over a year of doing this, I've technically completed one track.
Right.
So
Well,
I have like
right.
8 others that are like 95%. But
Right.
that's just the story. A tale as old as time when it comes to
Yeah, well,
this
so
stuff.
you were gonna say, I guess you wanted to get into that a little bit about your career and stuff, and so expound on that, like how you're having like the challenges you're having currently, and that you're having to navigate because once stuff starts getting real, then you start having deadlines, and it becomes more than a hobby. It becomes a job, and then it's like, oh well, I'm not on Jordan timeline anymore. I'm on Odin Fatso timeline, or I'm on Mark Knight timeline, or whatever timeline it might be. You
Hmm.
know, so what's that like adjusting to that?
Yeah, so that's something that has been coming up a lot more lately.
Hmm.
Because I started producing in April of last year, so 2024.
Hmm.
um, and for that entire year, I didn't have any timelines, any deadlines. There was nothing that had to be completed, nothing that had to be like delivered or anything. I mean, people might argue that, I should want to finish stuff so I can, get it out there. The more I could get out, the faster I can get it out, the better, yada yada.
Hmm.
But essentially, I was purely in a learning phase,
Hmm.
and there wasn't any expectations from outside sources that came from that. It was
Right.
just, the stuff I wanted to do and the stuff that I would show my friends, people like Kelly, and just what they thought. Now, after a year of that, so coming into this year, um, because of all that work that I put in, and especially on the DJ front, just playing in our local scene here in Dallas,
Right.
that started to change a little bit. I'm taking on bigger shows, and there's, certain levels of like promotion and other things that come with that. There's, Kelly asking me to complete a remix for his label that has a hard release date,
Right.
which has a, 4 to 6 week
Prep time.
Prep time before, where you have to actually have the track done. And that was something that I've never had to actually do. Like, this was the first time that's like, all right, I'm making a track and I don't really have the ability to like kind of let it grow with me. Because all my other tracks, the reason why they never got finished is because I grew alongside them.
Right.
I was, since I'd only been producing for a year, every single day there was still new stuff that I was learning. There's still new techniques, new ways to approach my mix downs, and constantly developing a master chain and developing just my ears as a whole, to really understand how to make good tracks that sound good, that people like. And so you could look at all the different versions of all of my tracks over the last 6-8 months or whatever, ever since any of them were born, and you can hear essentially the growth between each version, which just coincides to my growth as a producer.
Right.
And the nice thing about this is we're always going to be learning, but that became a scary thing, because I'm like, okay, I have like a few weeks to sit down and make this track, and I won't have the ability to come back to like, put it down for a few weeks and come back if I struggle with something.
Right. It's like fine. It's like the finality of it. It's going to be out there and done forever.
And what's funny about that is I almost did, in a way, end up doing that, because I had an original idea that I didn't really like, so I shelved it. And then I revisited some time later, made a new idea that I really thought I liked. And I told Kelly, hey, this is 90% done. We're Gucci. And then like a few days later, I was just like, man, I hate
this thing is horrible.
I cannot.
Who wrote this?
At this point, it's like, I'm running out of time. And so I really had to figure it out. But the problem is, it's like once you start letting that stress build up, it becomes impossible.
Life-ending crisis, dude. Right, like 2 days before it's supposed to be.
And I'm like, I finally have a melody that I want to rock with. And so, eventually, obviously, we came around to the track, and I swore up and down that I wouldn't have a revision. But then the next day, I messaged Kelly, and I was like, hey, I'm sorry, I need to make one revision, because I listened to it this morning.
And I knew that, so I did not put it in.
He saved me. But yeah, by the time, we got around to sending it out, I was happy with it. I really liked it. It's, it's my own mix and master as well. And, I'm proud of how it sounds.
Right. Well, like I said about you, you're one of those guys that can learn everything, as good as an audio engineer, where some people are good at like arrangement, and people have different strong suits, as far as production goes. But you kind of have a little bit of all of the above, and the curiosity to want to learn about that, because some people couldn't give a a beep about it. So which it's not for everybody, and I get it. Not everybody wants to know, you need to do a slat curve here and do a high shelf here, and all that kind of stuff. That
understanding why your phase shifts whenever you
exactly.
do a
Why
are
you getting a frequency cancellation here, and But yeah, I haven't even said the name of the track. So the track's called Speechless, and then it's going to be your first remix, and you actually have a Spotify profile, right? So
I
now
do
everybody
now.
can follow you on Spotify, which yeah, actually I need to do that, dude.
Oh yeah.
You've already gotten what, like
I think I
your
have like
mom
one
and your
follower.
girlfriend and your
Actually,
dad.
neither of them. It's my boy. Shout out Jake Gatewood.
Oh yeah, I
He
love
told me
Jake.
he followed me.
Shout out Jake.
I also
That's
followed myself from my personal account.
There we go.
So
Well, I'm gonna have to go over here and do that now. I got to see the picture. Let's see. Uh, 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 uh. Well,
I still need to add a bio
yeah, I need
on
to.
there.
Well, I need to go where it's better Wi-Fi. It's horrible in this end of the house. But so anybody. So I want to say, do you have like any advice for, people that might think they have ADHD? I mean, I know you said something online about that. But anybody else that's out there that's struggling that might be undiagnosed, or when I talk about addiction, like to people, I just say, hey, if you think there's a problem, chances are there's a problem. You know what I mean? So that's what I say to that. But as far as like, ADHD, do you have any advice or anything you would like to pass on to the folks?
Um, Honestly, like, I mean, not much, but since then, I have had some friends that have reached out to me about it,
Okay.
for themselves,
Right.
and I don't exactly remember how any of those conversations have gone,
Right.
but overall, I mean, it's funny because it's a little like it's a little ironic because one of the problems with ADHD is actually like I call it the motivation to get up and do things.
Yeah.
Um, but you have to get up and do that thing. You have to, schedule an appointment and you have to actually show up to that appointment on
Hmm.
time, etc. But
So maybe if
if
they're having trouble
that's
doing that, I mean, is that a sign maybe
well,
as well?
I mean, it could be, but
Yeah.
really just what I was getting at is just like, if you have thoughts or feelings about something, if you really do feel like it's something that really affects your day-to-day life, or other people think you have it or notice it or whatever,
Hmm.
it never hurts to, seek out,
I got a
a
question. So, did anybody else
diagnosis
notice it,
conversation.
or did anybody else suggest that to you, or was it just something that you came up? Did I bust you
Um,
now?
it's so annoying because afterwards,
Uh huh.
so it came up a few times in college,
Okay.
um,
Like where a
but
roommate said it, like we're like,
it was just my
dude, you
friends
got,
or something.
yeah, okay.
But after I did it, it's one of those things that I told my mom,
Hmm.
and she was like, "Oh, I knew that."
Right.
And I was like, "So you're telling me you let me live for, at the time I was 24 years old, I was like, you let me just live with it for 24 years and then I had to do it myself?"
Yeah.
Now, why, they didn't diagnose me as a kid for whatever reason. It is what it
Hmm.
is. It's all jokes. But it was one of those things that I would tell people, and they'd be like, "It's about time," or like,
Yeah.
"Oh,
Right.
I knew that," and I'm just like,
They're
"Why didn't
like,
nobody
no
say
shit,
anything?"
dude.
I'm over here silently struggling
Right.
and masking everything so that nobody
Right.
knows I'm struggling,
Hmm.
and everybody's just like, "Yeah, I knew that." I was like,
Hmm.
"Great, this is now useful for me."
Right.
Um, but but yeah, that's where it's nice that like really anybody who has like feelings about it, you can do a lot of research about it,
Hmm.
and then you can literally schedule an appointment to,
Yeah. You
different
can probably do online too, huh?
yeah, maybe, I don't know, different
Yeah.
providers have different regulations. There's also, different states or maybe even different countries have different ways
Right.
to approach it. Like my diagnosis process was a lot simpler,
Hmm.
quicker than like a lot of processes that I see like other people experience online.
Right.
Like sometimes it can be like a really like tough process, but that's why I'm thankful that I found a psychiatrist. I guess if that is my advice, it's if you want to seek that out, find a psychiatrist who
Hmm.
specializes in it.
Right.
You might not have one around you, but there's unfortunately a lot of stigma around ADHD in the medical world,
Hmm.
and
What is
so
that
going
stigma?
It's just people who don't think it's real.
Ah, okay, yeah. No, I was gonna
um,
say
or people who,
because I mean
you
I'm
know,
sure there's a lot of people that are still out there going, yeah, this shit's made up, dude.
yeah,
That's just called you're just a lazy, like all that kind of stuff. You know what I mean?
exactly.
And you're just
Uh,
like, no, it's a
and
medical
so
condition.
finding a psychiatrist that
Hmm.
specializes in it kind of prevents any possibility of you having issues with that with a provider.
Right.
Obviously, a medical provider, they're all licensed, they're all,
Hmm.
professionals in their field. But unfortunately, sometimes, people's opinions and personal beliefs
Uh-huh.
impact their ability
Well,
to
and a
care
lot of
for
times, but
others.
I find like a lot of people that are, like doctors that are just kind of phoning it in, like at a rehab or something. Oh, okay, well, you're depressed. Check, and you're this, so we're gonna throw
That
this at you,
actually,
and they
that,
do
that
that to everybody, though.
That happens to women a lot.
Yeah.
Like a lot of women who, like when they're teenagers,
Hmm.
they might have undiagnosed ADHD, but every
Hmm.
doctor will just tell them, "Oh, you're depressed, you're
Yeah.
anxious," but they don't think to realize maybe it's a comorbidity, maybe they're depressed or anxious because of their ADHD. And so there's
Right.
ways that's why it shows itself differently in women, and a lot of
Sure.
women go undiagnosed or
Hmm.
misdiagnosed as a
Right.
result.
And then, so basically, you're saying that's why men are superior to women, right?
No.
I'm just kidding.
Somebody's gonna clip you saying that
Right. Exactly.
with a straight face.
Right. That's hilarious,
Oh my
man.
God.
Uh, but yeah, dude, I'm excited. So, do you have anything else that you're working on as far as music releases and the future? I mean, I know you got some big gigs coming up.
Yeah. I mean, I'm working on a ton of stuff.
Hmm.
Nothing that is prime for release.
Okay.
Uh, it's funny because most of my projects are like my old projects that are still like not done. But
Right.
within the last few months, there's two or three projects that have entered the chat.
Hmm.
Um, and the only other like release that I have planned, and I don't even have a specific track for it yet. It might be one of my existing ones. It might be a new one. But in September, I'll be releasing an EP on our homies' new label,
Okay.
the Afties Boys. So
Oh, nice,
that was
dude.
people know our Afties homies.
Yeah.
Christian Lubes, Mal Blanc, Derek Lowe, and Therese Falcons. They're great homies in our scene here. But they started this Afties brand and they expanded into a label this year. So their first
Oh,
release on
nice.
that
I did
label is
not
coming up.
realize they went to a label, so that's cool.
Yeah. So
All right.
the first release is, I believe, the same day as our release.
Okay.
But they asked me to do, I mean, this is technically insider knowledge, but whatever.
Yeah.
I'll be releasing on their label in September, I believe.
Oh, nice, dude.
Um, so yeah, check them out. Stay tuned for that.
Well, that's
But,
cool, but really,
yeah.
the important takeaway of the show is follow Indent on Spotify.
Oh.
Really? Right? And then while you're there, obviously you can follow me and you can follow the show because we're streaming on all major platforms. But
All over
yeah,
the world.
that's right. All over the world and at your parents' house. Uh, but yeah, dude, I just want to say thanks for coming on because I know that you and I have talked about this and you bring it up in conversation. So I figured it would be kind of something that maybe somebody could use out there and benefit from, your experience.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I'm just a person experiencing life and, this journey like anybody else. But,
Right.
I've hit a point in my career where it's like, it's like I need to take things like certain things more seriously. I need
Hmm.
to like, develop more of a personal brand. I'm getting, like Kelly said, I'm getting bigger opportunities.
Hmm.
Like I'm playing Take a Break Fest on August 16th at one of the largest venues in our city. It's like a
Right.
4,000 cap room, which is nuts.
Right.
Um,
That's at the Bomb Factory,
the
right?
Bomb Factory, yeah.
Right.
And but it's like there's, and I've connected with some of my favorite artists, and uh, I joined Dojo, which is a great community of producers run by
And
Odin
that's
Fatso and Ben
worldwide.
Rao.
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
so I'm making all sorts of connections. I'm learning new things, but it's like, I'm there's a lot more eyes on me now than there was this time last year.
Right.
And it's like my Instagram little like engagement little thing
Hmm.
says that there are 44,000 profile views on my profile in the
Oh,
last 30
nice.
days. That is that is
Right.
absurd.
Yeah.
And that like also terrifies me
Dude,
because
no,
I
it's because
understand the
you're a circus freak and everybody wants to watch you.
oh God, but there's like expectations that come with
Uh-huh. Yeah, dude. Like
and there's work that needs to be
I was
done,
gonna
and
say,
so
like that is one thing. Like, I mean, because when you're DJing, man, you have to fake it, and you have to be into it whether you're feeling it or not. You know what I mean? So I got.
yeah.
Well, does that? I mean, before we go, I mean, do you have to deal with that a lot, or does it happen? Because I know I've seen it happen live. Like where you're not feeling it or whatever, and you just have to power through it because it's that first rule of showbiz: the show must
Yeah.
go on. It would be just funny if you just did put the headphones down and just come. I'm not feeling it, and then just split, dude. You're not really feeling it today. See ya.
I feel
Uh,
like if I'm most of the time,
mhm,
like just the act of like being there and getting in the rhythm is
mhm.
usually enough to like make me feel good, especially
Right.
since I'm playing music that I like and that I want to play.
Sure.
But, I'm pretty known to like, I don't like wear my heart on my sleeve per se, but
Yeah,
like
but
when I'm up there, it's like
uh,
if I don't like something, if you'll probably notice it.
right.
And so like yeah, like I will be up there sometimes. I'm just like, oh, like maybe I had a couple bad transitions or something. And it's
Hmm.
like it's always the type of things that like nobody notices except me, which is
Right.
the worst thing in the world. But
Right. Or
I don't
like
know, I
you
hold
have
myself to a high standard.
you think you have the worst set in your life, and people are like, "God, that was the greatest
That
set
was
I've ever heard."
awesome. I'm
You're
just like,
like,
ah,
ah,
but
okay,
yeah, I mean, you kind of do just have to keep pushing. There might be
yeah,
somebody right in front of the decks that is like really bothering you, really annoying you. That
right.
happened to me once.
That has
Um,
the Taylor Swift on
no, she
the.
was trying to interview me. Apparently, she's a reporter. I
Oh,
talked to her
okay,
like after the set, and
right. That's
I
funny.
was honest with her. I was like, hey, like you were like, it's like, yeah, to remember I'm working.
Yeah,
And like this is a fun thing. Like it's a thing that's enjoyable that I'm passionate about. But when a
right.
DJ is up there, it's like 9 times out of 10, if you try to talk to them,
Hmm.
like they're not going to be able to give you a coherent conversation
Right.
because they're focused.
Yeah.
They're playing mental Tetris, trying to like,
Yeah.
either control the crowd or bring in new tracks or figure out
Uh huh.
what direction they want to take the set in and all this stuff.
Right.
And so like, um, that's why like, if you're not feeling it, yeah, you do just kind of have to lock in and
Suck it
just
up, dude.
fight through.
Suck it up, Buttercup.
um,
But yeah,
but
no, I get it,
yeah,
dude. Well, but like I said, thanks again for coming on. I appreciate you being transparent, and then hopefully, we help some folks, and somebody will relate, and then maybe go get themselves diagnosed, like
yeah.
me. Who
I
knows, man?
honestly, I talked to my mom about it.
Uh-huh.
I was a little nervous too.
Yeah.
But after I got diagnosed and I'd learned a bunch of stuff, I just kind of like, and then I learned how it presents itself differently in women, and I was like, my mom checks all of these boxes, every
Throw
single
your
one.
mom under the bus. Why would you?
And I talked
Uh-uh.
to her about it. But I'm not even saying that in a bad way.
Right.
But it's
Yeah.
just like it's like he said. It's like it's one of those things that like we don't always realize it, and that's where like being
Well, and
educated
then
on it
there's
can
but
really
a
help.
lot of people when you start getting like not necessarily ADHD, but if you start talking bipolar, then there's that really negative stigma, or so they think.
Yeah,
Oh, that means bipolar equals crazy. So everybody thinks I'm crazy. So my doctor thinks I'm crazy now. Because I had people like that. And I'm just like, do you know how many millions of people, hundreds of millions of people have, mental, adversities. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just it's it's pretty commonplace, and it's just like it shouldn't be shameful at all. I mean,
Exactly.
it is what it is. It's like a health issue, to me.
It
Um,
stinks. It stinks that that viewpoint is also weaponized sometimes because
yeah,
people are like, these things are so prevalent, everybody has them. That means they're not real. And I hate that line of
right.
thinking.
Yeah,
It's like people are always like, oh, everybody's a little ADHD. And
right,
it's like, no, not everybody's a little
right.
ADHD. It's not
Sure.
how it works.
Yeah, I get it. Well, hopefully we help some people, and then be sure and tune in next week. Be sure to like, subscribe, all that good stuff, and remember, kids, there is no magic pill for sobriety because if there was, we would all take too many.